I'm just going to preface this. This is a hybrid session. So if we're focusing a lot here, that's because there's folks joining us online. So please bear with us if there's any technical difficulties. Okay, go ahead, Patrick.
Awesome. I just wanted to take like a couple minutes before we get started. Engine is proud to sponsor this Career Pathways track. And so if you are not yet familiar with Engine, we're an online English learning platform that aligns with Career Pathways. And so we're very heavy in our mission in supporting English language learners, immigrants, and refugees. And we're happy to be here to support you, help your program support ITPs, your programs with IETs, apprenticeships, and workplace ESL programs. And so just to show you what the vision of Engine is, we're kind of like a bridge between ESL programs and workforce development or certification programs. And we really want to help language learners access the opportunity to be able to get credentials or transition into those different career fields. And Engine is that resource that can help you build those bridge programs or support those ITPs. And the last thing that I want to talk about is I want to invite you to our professional development series on April 9th, 16th, and 23rd. We'll be having a three free professional development series where we'll be talking about blended learning programs, online instruction using Engine. And so this is free. And after you finish the three PD series, you earn 3 CEU credit hours. And so we also invite you to visit our booth and we'll be happy to talk to you. And thank you for this opportunity with our friends here at West. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so, oops. Okay, thank you everybody for joining. So this workshop is titled Successful Approaches Engaging Immigrant Networks for Workforce Integration. The agenda today for this session is we'll do a little bit of introduction, talk about WES, and talk about Synergy Texas. We'll frame, the context of this conversation, talk about those successful approaches, have some discussion, and then talk about some resources to do this work. So some instructions for the Zoom participants. Thank you for joining us. Letty will be monitoring the chat for us and offering any Zoom support. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or type them in the chat and we can read them aloud and address them as we're going on. So first, my name is Michaela Santos. I'm a senior program manager at WES. WES is a nonprofit social enterprise that works, for the social and economic integration of immigrants, refugees, and international students. We do this through multiple levers. Many of you guys know WES because of credential evaluations, but we have this whole other side of the house that does social impact work. This is through programming. This is through policy shaping, and then philanthropic funds. So we do this by partnering with different organizations such as Synergy Texas, and you'll hear a lot about their work today. So I'm going to pass it to my co-presenters. Great.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Rhodes from Restore Education in San Antonio, Texas. So we are a community-based organization that's an adult education provider, also offers other holistic services to individuals in our community and the counties surrounding us, and I'm a founding member of Synergy Texas.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Matthey. I'm the Career Pathway Supervisor at Austin Community College in adult education. I manage several programs, but one program is internationally trained professionals, and I'm also a founding member of Synergy. So happy to be here.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what is Synergy Texas? In 2019, the State Office for Adult Education in Texas got involved with WES through the Skilled Immigrant Integration Project. And Michelle's program at ACC, our program, and several others were brought in to share expertise and learn from all of the opportunities to engage with WES and the other programs across the country. It was a very informative time for us. And so we kept working on a volunteer basis, trying to develop resources and support for other programs across Texas that were new to this work. And so when an opportunity came up in 2022 to apply for a grant program through WES for a networking demonstration opportunity, we jumped on that. And through that opportunity, we created and formed Synergy Texas. So it's really just a formation of several volunteer individuals that are also adult education professionals by day. But we're so passionate about this work. And so what we've done is really create a website, and we're going to dig into that more, but really to find ways to share what we have learned through our experience and what we've seen on the ground with everyone as much as possible. So we are named Synergy Texas, but we do support other organizations that are across the US. So you don't have to be from Texas to work with us. So is there one more slide? Okay. Want to go first?
Back over here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so as part of this group at Austin Community College, we have developed networking events for students and employers. We have expanded our teacher assistant program for our internationally trained professionals. We have expanded our internationally trained professionals program to serve low-level and high-level students. We have also really dived into transferable skills and worked with students in getting into careers here in the United States. So we will go through that a little more and
So throughout our participation in working with WES and our fellow members at Austin Community College, we've been able to take away a lot of best practices through this work. So specifically, we wanted to highlight enhancing our case management support. So really leaning into having a full-time navigator that works with this population specifically, that has expertise there. Really leaning into marketing and relationship building. So working with employers in our area, other refugee and immigrant serving organizations that provide supports, and see how we can align and not duplicate services. Again, that leads to the community partnerships. So building those MOUs and relationships to where we're co-serving students, and then really broadening our programming. So leaning into getting funding to support credential evaluations and other things that we're not necessarily able to afford with all of our adult ed dollars. So those are just some of the things we've been able to add, and we can share more about those later.
Okay, wait, let's see if this one actually works. Okay, wonderful. So I think first, just we're going to dive into this conversation of, immigrants benefiting the workforce, why this is important. But to add some context to this conversation, we're just going to add some numbers in first. We all know that, funders, employers, businesses, et cetera, like the numbers. So I'm going to give them to you at the top. So immigrants help drive U.S. prosperity. Immigrant households contributed over $65 billion in taxes in 2023 and make up nearly 18% of the U.S. labor force. Nearly 1 in 4 workers in the STEM field is an immigrant. Especially in the healthcare system, all of us know critical shortages across the healthcare system in every field. Immigrants are twice as likely as their US-born individuals to work as home health aides, physicians, or surgeons. 15% of nurses are born outside the US, and 28% of health aides are born outside the US. Narrowing this down a little bit more, so immigrants, there are 30 million immigrant workers in the US labor force. 35% of them hold a bachelor's degree or higher. And so, of course, this is a huge population of workers that are supporting the US labor system, adding to public services, adding tax dollars, et cetera. But, WES and a lot of our partners kind of narrow into this smaller population that, hold bachelor's degree. Just, for streamlining and supporting them in this work and having additional services for them. So there is about 2 million college-educated immigrants and refugees that are underemployed. So of that, larger number, there is that many that are underemployed, and 60% of them hold credential evaluations that are earned abroad. Does anybody know what this term might be called? What's happening here?
brainwaves or
Correct. Yes. Okay. So oh, sorry. She said brain waste. So yes, brain waste is one of the terms that's commonly used for. The other word that we use is skill underutilization. So skill underutilization occurs when individuals aren't able to fully utilize their education and skills in the labor market. And immigrants are commonly affected by this, not only, immigrants with internationally trained degrees, but also immigrants across the board. Are there any other populations that might be affected by skill underutilization? Maybe the programs that your colleges, organizations might already have? Yes. Who's that?
Well, but you can't just say yes.
Oh, sorry, she said refugees. Yes. Refugees are included in the immigrant population we are discussing. Okay.
They have left a certain lifestyle and not be able to maintain that. And so
She said their families are also affected by skill underutilization, which is definitely true. I think the other thing that folks, this is again, talking about the larger economy, talking about the larger, workforce ecosystem as a whole. Sometimes community colleges and organizations already have programs for veterans, for former foster youth, et cetera. These are also populations that, are affected by skill underutilization. And a lot of times those services that you have for them can also apply to immigrants and refugees. So, yes.
I was actually just,
Yeah.
but I know about underutilization, and even across newcomer populations, but gender. I mean, the reality is that oftentimes you might have gender specific programming because we know that instances of not being able to work at levels that are commensurate with your experience sometimes does hit gender populations in certain ways, as well as even crossing from gender into just racial disparities. We know that underutilization hits certain populations within our country a little bit harder. And so certainly it's not just newcomers. I think that's also something to lift up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But yes, I think a lot of times, oh, yes, Letty.
Maybe individuals without a 4-year degree.
Correct. Individuals across the board, individuals, a lot of I think, many folks here, adult ed, I think a lot of the sessions that I've been to today have, ELL, ESL classes. That doesn't, that those aren't just for immigrants and refugees across the board. Lots of folks are in those classes. So again, sometimes the programs that you're offering can also just be applicable to a wider audience than you might think. So, again, back to the numbers, back to that economic cost. So, why do we care about this? Why do not we, of course, but why do businesses, leaders, government officials, et cetera, care about this? Is because economies suffer when these positions are unfilled. There's lost productivity and there's also loss in taxes. There's about $10.2 billion in foregone revenue annually by not having, immigrants and refugees be in roles commensurate with their skills. So as I mentioned, by building then these better systems and creating more opportunities, not only for immigrant and refugee workers, but for all US workers, we're creating then more opportunity and then, uplifting the US economy overall. And some ways to do this, which I'm sure many of you in this room are already doing, is through English skills courses, at your community colleges, at your local libraries, having contextualized ELL classes, volunteering, being that conduit for like US work experience, volunteering. I think we know a lot of times getting even for like a college student that went to the US, oftentimes getting that first job, that entry-level job, they say, you don't have enough work experience and you went to school in the US. And so I think that's across the board a challenge that all folks have. So that's, something that I think the systems can better support with everyone. Social capital, I think, is also a huge opportunity that we can support people to make connections with. And then again, that credential recognition, which, Wes is here to support with as well. There's credential evaluation services, there's bridging programs that support with these licensing pathways and certifications and credit for prior learning, and then these industry-specific credentialing and support. But definitely, not doing this alone. Hopefully nobody in this room is doing any of this work alone. Wes definitely doesn't do this work alone as well. So all of the folks that are, listed on this room, we have partners in all of these areas with policymakers. I work with the Office of New American State Network. So we work with, these state officials. We have philanthropic funds that we work with, chambers of commerce, employers, et cetera, are all part of this ecosystem that are supporting, the workforce as a whole. And so one of the ways that West tries to do this is a program that we launched that they talked about earlier called the SIP Demonstration Opportunity. It's a program where we provided technical assistance. Sorry, it says right there. It's a program where we provided financial assistance, customized technical support, program development support, and peer learning for about 1.5 to 2 years on varying topics. And so some of the topics are discussed here, and then we're going to dig into the first one a bit more and then go through the guide and the examples that they're talking about. But through the SIP demonstration opportunity, these partners identified these key economic challenges in these areas in their communities and use their immigrant networks to support this, economy in their communities. So in Michigan, Nevada, and Texas, they developed more integrated workforce systems. And Washington and Boston tackled healthcare shortages in their communities. Chicago, Lincoln, and Tulsa launched programs to expand equitable teaching pathways. I can definitely talk more about that, but the one that we're going to dig into today is the first bullet on the integrated workforce systems. Texas is going to do their example and go deep into theirs, but I'm just going to talk briefly about what Michigan and Nevada did. So Nevada, these were both offices of New Americans. So definitely I think potentially a little bit different in the room, but I think still had applicable takeaways that then were similar, and had lots of learnings that, collaborated then with Synergy Texas on this. But they developed trainings for their agencies and partner organizations to build capacity to support immigrant refugee participation in the workforce. That included just food safety training, helping folks get those certificates for food handlers license in other languages, helping them, navigate some funding, getting funding for credential evaluations, and did a lot of trainings about that. And then also created an immigrant workforce development group that then had representation from their communities that were, had then voices from their communities who are influencing the strategy plan for workforce development across the state. And then what Michigan did was they were trying to create a pipeline to have more immigrants and refugees in state government. So they created an immigrant professional networking group where they supported immigrants through referrals from their partner organizations and kind of reviewed their state hiring practices and walked folks through it and supported them, being like, governments, have these crazy guidance, et cetera. And these are ways that you need to input it into the application, because some of the government websites are a little crazy. And if you do tick one box wrong, they're just going to kick your application out. So that's what they did. And I said, Texas is going to do theirs. But as a result of this program, we created an implementation guide. And that implementation guide was titled Engaging Immigrant Networks to Build Integrated Workforces. So the title of the session. And that guide had key insights from then these workforce initiatives from these 3 partners. And so what this guide did, it kind of just took the learnings from then these 3 partners across the 1.5 years of work that they did and just kind of combined all the approaches and successful strategies to create then this framework of, good practices, examples, how to do this in your communities. So it just kind of creates that, framework and blueprint that if you want to do this in your communities, maybe here's how, and here's people you can connect to. And so it's intended for, state governments, community-based organization, community colleges, et cetera. And that is linked in the Whova app, but we're going to walk through some of them here today. I'm going to pass it over. Or does anybody have any questions first before we go into examples?
Nobody wants to see.
Comments? Amazing. Very clear. Good job, Michaela. Sorry, go ahead.
They can't hear you. We can't hear you here.
Awesome. So with the current political climate, how does this all work? And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a letter that has been issued now to for the removal of Haitians, Venezuelans, Cubans, etc. So I guess my heart is conflicted as to how does this all going to work in order for us to support, our adult students who are facing these challenges.
I'm like, I don't know if you guys want to talk from your perspective, but I can talk from Wes's perspective first.
Well, I mean, with our services here in Texas, sorry, we are continuing to serve these students no matter. We have a very supportive AEL provider in Texas, and even if students are undocumented, we are still serving these individuals. We also have certain protocols that we have set up at our community colleges so that if we are faced with or approached with individuals wanting information, we do have a protocol where they are escorted to the chancellor's office. So we have set up a system here, but I don't know if Restore has something similar or very similar, so.
And this is just from a West perspective. So we are a national, binational organization, and we, thankfully do not receive federal funding. So are, thankfully unaffected then by that, grant making process. But of course, all of the partners that we work with and support are affected by this. So that does impact then some of our work and some of the, how we're able to share and wanting to protect the partners. But West then, because we're not federally funded, take that responsibility very seriously, and then double down to support our partners and be there for our partners and continue to back them, because we take the responsibility very seriously. So we still, offer these programs as much as we can, but we just try to be respectful of what the partners can share, and what they're comfortable sharing externally, and what they're able to do in the climate. Yeah. Yes.
So another thing too, to add on, I'm also with Wes, is that we have some grants as well. And so might be able to find grants through the private sector that maybe have less restrictions. And so that's what I would recommend. There's a lot of partners here that are doing similar things. So I would definitely look into that. For us, we looked internally to our partners first to make sure that we had a kind of a rapid response to them. But there are a lot of private funders that are doing this work and trying to take over some of that funding that's needed out there.
Any other questions before we dig into the guide? Okay.
All right. So what we want to do is just kind of dig into what we did as part of Synergy Texas through our involvement in the demonstration opportunity. Give me just a second here. So we had kind of three main focus areas, and I don't want to read this to you, but what we spent a lot of time doing at the very beginning was really studying the landscape. The Texas Workforce Commission's Adult Ed Office had already done a lot of research and surveys across all of the different adult education grantees in terms of how they were offering services, if they were offering services for internationally trained professionals. They were able to share that data with us, also share data overall in terms of students served, MSGs, and different things like that across the entire state, so that we could kind of get an idea of what was being offered, and really found out that they were underserving individuals that could potentially qualify for this program. So it was a big push across the state in order to support other adult ed grantees and starting and recognizing that these individuals are already in your programs. How can we serve them better? And so that was kind of our mission, really, to move forward and do that as a group. And so what we did was form together as Synergy Texas. And kind of the first thing we realized is that a lot of individuals, even in adult ed, didn't understand how to recognize the population, how to also communicate what is brain waste, and how this type of a program was beneficial to other community partners and to other employers. This was something that ACC was doing really well. So they were a guinea pig when we created a marketing flyer. And let me show you that one next. That'll just kind of talk about one of our main goals overall was really increasing capacity and awareness of the program across the state. So we pulled data not only from TWC's Adult Ed survey, but also from American Immigration Council, formerly New American Economy, and they had a ton of information on cities, large cities across the US. And I believe it's all still there, where you can kind of it's called Map the Impact, pull the data in your city in terms of the number of foreign-born workers, the education levels, the sectors that they're working in, and then the age groups and demographics. So we put some of those together for each of the major cities that were part of our Synergy network to share out as a fact sheet. So these were great kind of conversation openers in terms of going and meeting with an employer and creating partnerships. And I'm sure Michelle can speak to that a little bit more. But then that also kind of opened the door for us to talk with those in our state that were not able to or didn't have the ability, right, and the resources to start a program like this. So how could we start working with them to create those partnerships and kind of mentor them in things that ACC and that Restore Education were already doing? I'm going to pass it to Michelle.
Okay, I'm gonna let you change the slides too.
Oh, yeah,
I have a back. If I touch it, it's gonna blow up. Okay, so here for we came together under Texas Workforce Commission. Policy was written 2016, 2017 to allow us to work with individuals that have degrees from their country. They became a target number for our adult ed. And so through that, we met, several AEL providers met together, and we formed Synergy. We formed Synergy through support through SIP. We used their knowledge, and we were able to create a statewide program to help serve ITPs across the state. And so what we found were programs like mine that have maybe more money to spend on students compared to some of the more rural areas that didn't have as much money. We were able to develop and create things and share that information. And so we continue to do that even today. But we've also created mentoring and professional development opportunities that we share across the US. So we have several, we've gone to Taylor, which is our local state AEL conference. We've attended COABE. And so just mainly to share the information, because we have found that there are still programs out there that are serving ITPs that may not have the funding, but they're still sending those students to GED. And so we're really trying to advocate on behalf of the student. You do not need to send them to GED, and this is how. And so through our webinars, we've also done lunch and learns. We just did one, translation versus evaluations. That's, something a lot of people are not familiar with. We also looked at transferable skills. Students come here to the US and a lot of them think, well, I was a doctor in my country, and so now I need to mop floors because I can't be a doctor here. And that happens so often, or I have to go get my GED. And that is just not true. They have a degree and they have transferable skills. So they can be a coordinator in a hospital, or they can manage a clinic. They may not be an actual doctor. This mic hates me. So, they may not be an actual, physician here and have patient contact, but they could still work within the field and still bring in an income that will support their families. So we have created the flyers like Kelly had mentioned. We also have a website that has a lot of resources and information that we try to keep updated, but please bear with us, it is a volunteer. We are all volunteers. We have, our 40-hour week jobs. We also, like I said, we do lunch and learns, but we're always taking suggestions. If there's topics that you want us to cover, please email us. We'll scan your badge. You can be on our newsletter. We also, I think, have a QR code coming up. So
We do. And we've also met with a couple other programs from other states too. So if that's ever a need, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to hop on a call and just share any sort of expertise that we have. We're happy to lend that. This is something we're very passionate about. So, and all of our presentations, just another plug from Taylor and COABE, we actually have all of our slides and other resources on our program resource page, which you can see down there on the bottom right, open to anyone. So again, if you have questions, feel free to just reach out. I think it's
Okay, so we have some time for a quick discussion. So in the room in person, just find a friend, and if you don't have any friends, turn around. And so we just want to hear, what do you do in your communities? Have that discussion with a friend, and then we will come around and we will hear. I want to know, what do you do? And we want to learn from you, and we want to know, will any of these approaches be helpful in what you're doing day to day? So I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes to have that discussion, or 10 minutes to have that discussion. And then online breakout rooms. So, or in chat, just put in chat. So.
People are they're not. Like, we actually have a lot of time. He breathes through that. See that? Oh.
We all did. So
We can give people time. We can give people time to share. That'll be good. Yeah. I feel like I always like to talk to other people at conferences personally. Oh, it's not because of y'all, it's like loud. This one.
Have anybody that would like to share? I hear a lot of good conversations. Anyone like to share? Any sharers? Come on. All right.
I just met Josh from New York. My name's Larissa from San Angelo, Texas, Howard College, AEL. Yeah, woo, woo. And I met Josh from New York, who is working for an organization that helps people find funding for completing an education. And sometimes those are military spouses. And who else?
Or I mean, really anybody, often adult learners. So it's anybody that maybe they started college, maybe they didn't, but now, the obvious getting a bachelor's degree is just so critical for entering the workforce. So we don't necessarily provide the funding. It's an accelerated program. So we will try to minimize it, packaging any prior education. If we can package together prior work experience, we have NCCRS accredited courses. So all of that will be taken together. We'll try to accelerate that process, bring down the costs, and then send them off to a partner university where they'll be able to get their degree. As it's all online, so they could be working, and obviously people have busy lives. So the goal is to help people get a bachelor's degree as quickly and affordably as possible.
Sorry, I misspoke.
Thank you. Okay, who else would like to share? Awesome. Here we come.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I am from DC. One thing that I learned new. So I come from our organization, our school is basically a lot of immigrants, refugees, that they're getting their GED in Spanish and English and learning ESL. And so a lot of our students have this mindset that they don't want to have a verification, even though they have master's degrees sometimes. And they're like, no, because if I want to continue learning, I don't want to be a foreign student because I want in-state tuition. So they go the GED route. And so I was talking to Stacy here, and she's like, hey, at the same time, everything else would go back to zero. So that's something I would like to take back to my organization to speak, because this is a whole nother department aside from academics. I'm an instructional coach, but it's a good thing to reinforce, to let our students know, hey, you can still graduate, get verified. You don't have to start from zero again if you have a master's degree. This is Washington, D.C.
My name is Edmond. I'm from Malawi. But originally, I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm one of them, means I'm a refugee. Yes, I came in United States as a refugee. But back home, I have my bachelor in nursing and master's in public health. Yeah, I came in United States on 2015 from Zimbabwe, where I spent like 9 years with my family. We got our resettlement and they sent us to New Mexico. Yeah, New Mexico with the resettlement agency, Lutheran Family Services. I showed them all of my transcripts, all of my diploma from Africa. They said, no, listen. Here, they don't care about this. You need to start fresh and to see what to do. I have a family, father of 7. What can I do? Back home, my parents are there, my siblings are there. I need to work. And I said, I need to work. Let me work in the medical field. Working in the medical field here, you need to have something that is testifying that you can work in the medical field. I did the CNA program. After doing the CNA program, I started working at UA or at UNM hospital in New Mexico as a nurse aide. And I went to university to show them, to try if I can do something to get again back my certificate or my degree in public health, things like that. It was taking time. Today or this year, we are going to do it next year. It was like that. And after that, like I was working in the hospital, I see how my community members were struggling at the emergency room. Once they are there, they're supposed to wait to get like the interpreter online for them to save them because of language barrier. I changed my mind. I did the community health worker. From there, I start now trying to connect all of my community members to the services that we have in the community and to see how we can assist them and advocate for them most of the time. Yeah, there were a new program at Albuquerque Public School. Because of what they found that in education, most of the time, refugee parents, they were not responding to the all of the call or the meeting at school. They were not participating or parent engagement, everything they were not participating. And the public, Albuquerque Public School, they made a new program of saying, no, we can use people from the community that could be better to see how we can serve them. From that program, I had a chance to work with Albuquerque Public School as a refugee case manager. And we were hired, 3 of us, one from Middle East, one from Africa, and the other one from Afghanistan. That was really a good link now with refugee community and public school. Yeah, that's a way. But from now in Alaska, I'm working with Alaska Literacy Program, adult education. Really, I like it, like a program support. I see it's very, very interesting. I'm seeing everything that we are talking here is what immigrants and the refugees, they are facing in United States. Yeah, from there, you can see people from Ukraine, an engineer, he cannot work in construction because of what language barrier. You need first to learn English. In that, you need everything you need to start from zero. Okay.
And that's, I mean, that is something we see quite often. And unfortunately, I mean, I could say for Texas, we are just starting to really address the brain waste that is out there. And we're really just starting to address serving the internationally trained professionals and getting them jobs in their field. We have put engineers from Ukraine in positions as engineers here in Austin, not here, but because we're in Dallas, but you know, over a ways in Austin. But it's new. It's a new field. It's a new field. And that's why we created Synergy. So we could pull everyone in and we could educate others in Texas about this. But now we are trying to branch out. We're trying to educate Alaska. Alaska's far though, but we are trying to get out there. You know, we're trying to reach out to Louisiana and other states that need the support and need to know how to do this. I had the fortunate of hiring someone that was a voc rehab counselor who did direct job placement for people with disabilities. She came to work with me, and now she does direct job placement for internationally trained professionals. And she works with employers and does that level of job placement. And we have had probably a 70% placement rate for our ITP students in careers that match their education. And so it's really made a difference in their lives. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, it's a great mic. Anyway. Yes.
Okay, I just have a question. I just want to know like how we can, or how does this work? Like, how can we access that information to kind of like bring back to our state offices and all of that? Because I feel like from an immigrant perspective myself, and having gone through the system that way, I was not ELL, but I had a similar experience where I had to start from zero because I was a teacher back home, being the Caribbean. And when I came here, I had to go back, all my professional formation had to be done here so that I could actually teach. So I guess my question is, how do I take this back and incorporate it like in Arkansas, which I know we have very limited, resources when it comes to kind of like implementing that and helping immigrants. So thank you.
So, I mean, one thing, and I know we can go to the next, is the next slide resources?
Yeah.
So one thing you can do is I would recommend join our lunch and learns, have these discussions. Because what we do is we do topics and then we have these open discussions. We learn from each other and we learn what resources. We do have just some hard resources I know through Wes. We have a website, we have our newsletter. We have all these items here that we can definitely share. I've seen Arkansas sign up for our lunch and learns, but they never come. So I expect you to come now.
I'm also going to make some other plugs. I also think, I think a lot of these practices are like things you can take into your state, no matter what state it is. I didn't show I showed that one map, but I think we have another map. Letty is the manager of this program, but we have a larger program then called SIP, which is we work with 45 communities across the country, Texas being one of them, but like you see dots all over it being one of them is actually in Arkansas, Idaho, Nebraska, etc. So some of these like red states are doing very innovative practices because I think, the comment about the federal landscape is, sometimes when stuff is happening over there, the states and cities have to be the ones to step up and be innovative and do what they can to serve their communities. So lots of times there's models, across the country that are doing it. And Synergy Texas, of course, but Wes can also help connect you to then, if Arkansas, maybe your teacher pathway is similar to, your teacher licensure laws are similar to that in Chicago or Illinois or whichever, we can connect you to partners that we have in that state that might be doing similar work. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's, what Wes is essentially trying to do. What Synergy Texas is trying to do is that we have tons of these resources, especially for internationally trained professionals, that we don't want you guys to start from zero, just as we don't want any of your students to start from zero. There's tons of materials out there that are also free. These resources that we're going to show you are all free, that you can, have some examples. You can talk to people to figure out, they're going to say, these are challenges, maybe at least learn what not to do, maybe some routes, what not to take. And again, you find, some surprising communities that are doing this work, they're not all in California. So I think we can, honestly, very few in California, but so we can definitely connect you to tons of organizations, tons of communities, organizations that might be just like yours. You just don't know about them because they're across the country. And that's kind of that connective tissue that Wes hopes to serve. Yeah.
And you may not be able to say the I word, but we've already come up with new words to mean the same thing.
I'm coming from North Carolina, Alamance Community College, and I manage the ESL program for our college. I find that the information is very interesting, but I think we will remain aware of the fact that we cannot work in silos. And I find that this particular topic touches every level of our society, but the problem is that if every level doesn't realize how much they're being touched, we can only go so far. So as a community college, I noticed that if there is no culture of community involvement within your college, your capacity to reach out and really create change in every layer is very limited. I'm a social worker, and I found myself working in a college after working for Duke in North Carolina for 10 years. So I moved from public safety or public education and public health to public education. But I realized that working in silos is an issue that probably a lot of us are facing. And as community colleges, I have found that many people who work in college and believe are not comfortable speaking, they're not comfortable in public space. And being an immigrant myself, I lived in 3 countries. I have through all the examples that have been, but it's more about a reminder that we cannot do this alone. And although we can learn from other states, we have our own and understand the culture and the mindset within the community that we serve before we try to figure out what's happening in California. because demographics and mindsets and generational history changes so much. And so whatever is working in another state may not apply to mine. So be mindful about that. I think otherwise it's a difficult work, but it's so worth it. Again, if that population continues growing, we all grow and we all win. And the more education is in our community, the healthier and the wealthier our country can be. So it's a reminder that I give myself every time. And when we learn and when we teach when we train teachers, another thing that I have to keep in mind is cultural awareness is not something we teach everywhere, and kindness can go but so far. So I have amazing teachers who want to help, but they're so afraid to make a mistake, to call somebody by the wrong name, to say something that is inappropriate. So we found ourselves caught up in so much political correctness that we are not able to have honest and transformational conversations in a room because we're so afraid to realize that there is an elephant in the room and nobody wants to talk about it, but it was a horse all this time. And it's almost like we're so close to it that we don't realize how wrong we are. So I invite people to really have an honest conversation from the point of, I don't understand, I don't know, can you explain that to me? And I find that when we have that conversation, I never get offended when somebody asks me, tell me about your country, tell me how you came, because they're giving me the power to tell my story rather than assuming what they know about me. So it's important to have that conversation, whether you're a teacher, you are working in the state level or the down up or top down. It's just a reminder that I give myself and my teachers every time.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely a great comment. You know, the slide that I had earlier with the whole ecosystem, all the folks that are necessary to, you know, contribute to, you know, workforce development, et cetera, you know, definitely working in silos is very common in this work. But, you know, one of them, those approaches is learning the local landscape. And there's actually, I'm just going to go to this next slide quickly. We do have a resource guide, and this is, you know, again, doesn't work in all states, but is a good starting point. But it's just, you know, community asset mapping, which is just like a tool that's basically like figure out who's in your community, who's doing this work, what services they are providing, and how you can work together. And that's, you know, essentially what the tool kind of does. But it kind of just has like some worksheets and some steps maybe that can guide you along in that process. Just as, you know, she was saying, to not work in silos and to also, you know, combine forces. If they're providing a service, why would you also provide that service, you know, to not be duplicative and work together? And West, you know, as a whole, you know, the comment, I didn't mean to say, you know, you have to do what California is doing. I think this is why West then, you know, works in these communities, because we let the communities lead and say what is needed in your community, and we are just supporting and backing you. So we know that, you know, every community is different, every demographic is different, the, you know, sectors that you have are different. So, you know, the solutions that you find in your own communities are different, but sometimes these approaches in general, you know, support and tools, et cetera, can be useful for everybody. So that's what, you know, we then hope to provide to, you know, support the nation as a whole. I'm going to go back. Is there any other questions? Oh, yeah.
So I'm going back to the resource page
Yeah.
because I just want to touch note. You said that if you're not able to support or you're not in that area, you're able to provide us with partners and resources.
Yeah.
Who do we contact for that? Like, who do we reach out to? I know you gave us the websites, but who can I contact for that information?
Wait, for them or for you can. Okay, I mean, I'm like, you can ask me. I'm not exactly sure which program you're talking about, but I'm happy to
Well,
connect you
either
to-
one. I'm in
Yeah.
Washington, D.C., so
Okay.
it's like very.
Yeah, I'm happy to connect you to whichever industries you're interested in. So it just might depend on, you know, what industries you're interested in. Then we have partners, again, depending on what industries, you know, are prevalent in that community is maybe what programs that they might have. So we'll just connect you to then those communities that might be relevant to you.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And we also have a program map. So if you just type in West program map, yeah, Letty might have put it on the Hoover app. But if you just Google West program map, that map can also show you like tons of, you know, programs across the country that are specialized and like have specialized programs or certificates, et cetera, for internationally trained professionals. So if, you know, again, it's similar to the community asset thing, and it's like, again, who's already doing the services in my community, and maybe that map can help you find somebody. Or if you're not on the map too, and you want to be on the map, you can also request to be on the map. Yeah.
I have a question about another elephant in the room. I talked to my neighbor and it seems like we have similar problems, and I'm from California though. So what about international trained professionals who do not have a legal status, but they're really good potential workers? Is anything, and I believe you probably all facing the similar situations in your programs.
I'm going to let Michelle answer that one.
I was just going to say there's a program for employers to sponsor people.
I mean, you can do visa sponsorship. That's not always easy for some individuals, but when we're working with students and they don't have work authorization, we look at volunteer opportunities first, because I mean, we're still putting them through classes and trainings because the majority are trying to work on their status and to become eligible to work. So we start working with volunteer type jobs, and we've had a few students that have gone through that process, and while they're volunteering and gaining experience in the United States, then they move on and then they are eligible to work. Yes.
Yeah, I have always had this question about like big companies, they just look for employees overseas and they bring them here with a work authorization visa. Why they don't reach out to the community and see how many are legal and hire them instead? So, and I've been helping students since 1999 doing WES. I did it myself when I came to this country. And you know, and I'm from South Carolina, and unfortunately, students which is very common nowadays, they have a work permit and a social security, but they don't have a green card. So basically, they don't have a legal status here. They only have a legal status to work, but not to pursue higher education. So when they reach technical colleges, they say, well, unfortunately, you cannot enroll with us because you're not a green card holder, and their dream just vanished.
We had a similar situation with Round Rock ISD. Here in Texas, we call our school district ISDs. So they were bringing in people from France to fill teaching roles. And so what we did was we directly reached out to the ISD and started inviting them to networking events. And they started hiring we trained them as teacher assistants. They work in the classrooms, but because of the teacher shortage, and they have the education from they started going and becoming teachers. And they're called long-term subs. And so they were long-term. And meanwhile, we're putting them in TOEFL classes and trying to help them pass the TOEFL within that year cutoff. And so we've been very successful. Round Rock stopped recruiting from France. And so, I mean, sometimes it's just reaching out to the employer directly and saying, hey, I have 50 engineers here. They may not have your local license. You know, they have opportunities, and every state's different. The engineer information is fine, you up, but you know, some just reaching out to those companies. Some companies you don't want to reach out to. As you know, Austin has a very large vehicle manufacturing company that we're not reaching out to. So
I'm state AFLA staff from Ohio, and I just wanted to share that one thing that we're doing, to your point about not being able to get them in higher education if they don't have the right status, or, you know, all of those things we don't like to talk about. Something that we've had success with in Ohio is having some of our internationally trained professionals enroll in integrated education and training to get credentialing that then sets them up for success to enter into like the healthcare system. So if they were internationally trained, you know, as like a radiologist or something, they can get a credential through one of our IET programs
that places them like at the Cleveland Clinic, for example. And we've had really exciting success with that. And then the Cleveland Clinic gets more involved in their continuing education. It's similar. Yeah. So, okay. Right. So this is, so we're, I guess that the pathway that I'm sharing is more, we have AFLA funded programming, IBES, right, and integrated education and training, and then they're getting a credential, and that credential is awarded regardless of their status because they take the test and they pass, because our programming is great. But then they get plugged in at a healthcare facility, and then the healthcare facility is the one that helps them continue their education.
Okay, any last?
Speak to that some CTE or career and technical credentialing is done on the non-academic side, so they don't have to enroll into the college to get, but the technical school, if it's under, well, at least in Texas, we have continuing education and workforce training. It's a non-academic program. And some of those will offer things like radiology or pharmacy tech or other things that are not, they don't have to enroll in the college through the academic side. So but they can get a credential through that other. Okay.
Okay, so we just want to show you one last thing. I don't want anybody to be hangry. I know it's getting that time. So do you want to show, Kelly? Did you have
I
something?
don't think we were going to pull it up, but it was to your question
Oh.
earlier in terms of resources. So on our website, we do have a program resource page and we have a student resource page. So again, it might not apply to everybody, but if you're starting from scratch, it's a great place to go and pull down some of those links for students to use and for staff. So feel free to explore both of those. You're welcome.
And then these two, I just showed this to you already, but these two guides are on the app already, and I'll make sure to put this PowerPoint on the app as well. So, you know, any questions about that, you guys can also, I don't know if my email is on there already too, but you can email me about it. And then lastly, we have, you know, Wes had a number of sessions here at COABE. So we have a QR code that kind of just, you know, collects all of the resources that we had across all of our sessions here. We also have little flyers if you want to just take the QR code with you if you forget to, you know, bookmark it on your phone. But we have, you know, all the resources that we shared at COABE here. And then in general, Wes has tons of other resources on the resource library that we have. Again, all free resources, some that are really good for like, you know, four-year internationally trained professional students, like a GPA calculator, like a degree equivalency tool, et cetera. So lots of free resources for practitioners and for students as well. Yeah, so take the little flyers. We don't want to take them home, so please take them. Okay, and then if anybody has any other questions, feel free to continue. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Is there any questions in the chat? No. If anybody has any questions in the chat, let us know. Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you guys. Enjoy your lunch.
You guys have 2 seconds to take a tiny survey. It'll take you like 2 minutes. That'll be really helpful for Letty and I, for West folks. Okay. It'll just say, you just like write COABE. Yeah. It might just take you 2 seconds to pull it up and then like another, yeah. So, but you can do it as you're walking, like do it as you're eating. Go ahead. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.